Okay, we're live.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Actually, it's into the afternoon. Welcome everyone to the special meeting of the Mahone Bay Town Council. We'll begin by acknowledging that we are gathered today in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral, present, and future territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Today, we gather with the intent followed by the Living Peace and Friendship Treaties, and we do so with respect, cooperation, and coexistence. Call the meeting to order. You have an agenda that was emailed to you. What is your wish with the agenda, please? Move.
Accept as
Seconded. Moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as presented. All in favor? The motion is carried. Let's go right to the first item on the agenda, that is the staff reports that were deferred from the council meeting of last Thursday. One was on the Solar Garden grading project, and the other was on the service road design for the community solar garden distribution line. Councillor Feeney.
Mayor, I know that this item's been deferred a few times and council's had the opportunity to review the package over the last month or so. With that context, I move that council approve the grading plan as recommended by area.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Feeney. The deputy, you were. You've heard the motion on the question. All in favor? On the question, yeah.
One of the questions I had, which I kind of got an answer from Maureen last night, but I'd ask him again. Throughout the text of the discussion of grading, it talks about a maximum 10-degree slope. But when I look at the map, the chart that you folks sent out a few weeks ago, there are almost no situations where it's a 10-degree slope. It's anything from 11 and 12 up to as much as 22 degrees in a variety of different directions. And I just wondered if you could help shed some light on that.
I'll pass that to Lenta to answer.
Okay, sorry. Linda.
Thank you. I just want to remind council that the report that you have in front of you, the drawings that was supplied at the time of the proposal that we had made, was preliminary drawings. The gradings that you referred to, councillor, is the grading of the current status of the site. So you will see all the various gradings. In the next revision, the 90% drawings that will be forthcoming from our civil engineers, you will see a full grading plan, how those grades will be adjusted in order to accommodate the 10% grading for the racking system, as well as the other issues needing to be addressed on the grade, such as stormwater management, etc. So that was just a grading plan, initial grading plan, without the necessary engineering that followed suit.
So can I just ask an auxiliary
Yes, please.
question? And that is, if that's not the grading plan, that is going to be the ultimate grading plan, what are we here for? What are we approving?
So if I can,
the site exists as it is, fine, yeah, I know that, but I don't need to approve that, it's there.
Ms. Wright?
thank you, Mayor. Before we had proposed this grading plan, councillor, there were other options on the table. I'll remind you that we had that discussion already, and this was to say that this is the option that you wanted us as area to further develop, and then come back with those findings to council.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
So that, I guess the other piece to that is that my understanding is that we still have to approve a stormwater management plan that will be built on, or we'll be building on this grading plan, right? So my question is around that particular stormwater management plan, how soon can we have that? Or how long should we be waiting to see something come to the table?
Thank you.
There might be another question best directed to Lenta, I think. So I know she's been speaking to the contractors.
So we have, as I just mentioned, we are now at a development stage of the grading plan that can inform that storm management plan. I've reached out in the interim to a number of consultants that could develop that plan for us. We would be looking at a number of months before we will be able to see a full plan that is documented. But in the next week or so, I will have a full estimate of timing as well of costs associated with developing that plan. The necessary background information is there already from a civil design. It is now working towards creating that plan that is accessible and understandable by everyone.
So
Deputy Mayor?
as a follow-up, is there a possibility that we could approve this grading plan and have to alter that based on what a storm management plan may come up with? I'm not an engineer, so I don't know whether that's a possibility, but I'm just curious whether that's something that we could be looking at.
Is right?
So there is no need to adjust the grading plan. The grading plan that is in place that we have 90% drawings for currently will inform the stormwater management plan. So in that 90% drawing package, it will give you all the information that we have up to date. If there's additions, there could be additional measures added to the grading plan for additional storm management activities, but the grading plan will stand as is, and we will manage the stormwater accordingly. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else on the question?
Can I just
Councillor
say one
Wilson.
comment? I'm sure the engineers already know this, Lanta, but in case they don't, there is a culvert under that roadway that takes all the runoff water from the other side of the road
North side.
down into the Sampson's property. So that will have to go, I assume.
There is some additional trenching that will happen on that ditch that runs from the site all the way down, and as well as the culvert right at the bottom of the intersection with the access road to Main Street. We have looked at that design to make sure that it is sufficient with the new channeling of water coming down and then flowing under Main Street.
Yeah, I'm talking about the culvert under the road that's up around W10 and W11 roughly on your map.
Yeah.
Okay,
We are addressing that too. Yes.
good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Back to our motion. Clerk, would you read, or Deputy CAO, would you read the motion again, please?
That council approve the grading plan as recommended by area.
Okay. You've heard the motion. On the question, all in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Let's go to the staff report on the service road design for the community solar garden distribution line. And if you recall, the position of the road was a decision, and now we're talking about the actual finite design of that road. Councillor Wilson.
Move that we approve the road access road design as recommended by area.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Now. On the question. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, this is something that you're going to see if we've answered. Just trying to remember, when we had this conversation about the road, I believe it was settled that it will only be a service road. It will not be a road that can be accessed by the public.
Yeah, the intention is to have the road be gated at the intersection with Covert. So it would only be town staff and then the owners of the properties across which the road would pass that would have keys to that gate.
So,
And it would be classified as a private road, not a public street.
a private road, but we as a town say we don't want private roads based on our development standards.
With that, so that's the distinction there, is that's a private road with civic addresses off of it. There will be no civic addresses being issued off of this road. So this is a laneway, it's a privately owned road as opposed to a private road, I suppose, in that road.
In many ways, my take on this is that I was and I continue to be, I guess, philosophically against the process that we're using. But then if we're going to do that, my mind immediately jumps to, so what is for the greatest benefit to the community, having a road there, what would the benefit be? And for me, it would be a benefit of increasing access to those properties. And so I'm just asking for a question for council is that if we make it a private road, are we actually getting that benefit? Or are we just saying it's a benefit for, as in the maximum benefit would be just be going to the solar garden rather than maximizing the benefit overall?
Councilor Wilson.
Thank you. I agree with the deputy mayor that my philosophy would be that road should be a full-blown street in town that allows the property owners to develop the properties on either side, whatever they happen to own. But as I remember, one of the stumbling blocks with at least one of the owners was that it be kept private. For whatever reason. I suppose because so the hot rodders can't go up and down that street.
CAO, you're,
Yeah, that's certainly been the indication from all of the property owners is that they would prefer the road to have access control that over.
You know, I think as it's been a long-standing dream to provide access to the Ridgeway in the pursuit of ongoing development down the road, but down the road, small R road. You know, and so in this case, you know, I think this is phase one of a decade-long journey to see. Like it strikes me as reasonable to expect that down the road, the economic incentives to take that road and inevitably turn it into a road that meets those standards. So I'm out of my depth here, but 65 feet wide and, asphalt X inches thick and so on and so forth, which is far beyond the economic budget of this project. So, I do think that if there is a road, I think as we've looked at this site, it's become clear to us that access to the Ridgeway will never occur through the rails to trails track. I mean, the old railway track. That's economically that will never happen for all the obvious reasons. We evaluated it. Just to go that extra route was $400,000, and to turn that into a commercial road where you could drive trucks down and cars down, it's just an unfathomable amount of money. But I do think, to the deputy mayor's point, aspirationally, if the owners of the property in consultation with the town down the road want to convert that laneway into a road to provide long-term access, then that's something that I think that's something the town would be amenable to if it was economically viable. So I think, Francis, I would be open-minded about doing that, but I think for the time being that would require probably more thought outside of the process we're using to create the service corridor. Would be my sense of things, and millions of dollars. But
Deputy Mayor.
So just a final question would be, by going this route right now and approving it the way it is now, are there any limitations legally or otherwise that we're putting on ourselves that will make it a problem in the future contemplating it being a public accessible road?
So the right of way that is being sought here is 66 feet. So that is, sufficient for any type of road being built. The process by which we obtain the easement, if there's resistance to it and the section of it has to be expropriated, it's being expropriated for a specific purpose. So, there would be, I think, a need to revisit in the long run. And as Councillor Feeney said, that would be if at the property owner's behest, the town were engaged to do that. Presumably, they would not be resistant to it because they were the ones approaching town. So, I think it comes down to who is initiating this process to open the road to the public. And whether the property owners are the ones initiating that process. I wouldn't see it as a stumbling block if in that case.
Can I have a follow-up? So in this scenario, just mentioning, because we've received a letter from at least one a lawyer representing one of the residents. In this case, if expropriation would be the route that would take place. From what you say is basically, if we expropriate to put in a private road, in the future, we might have challenges making that a publicly accessible road because the purpose which we stated for expropriation was a private road.
The purpose we would be stating would be a utility easement. So a utility easement doesn't confer any expectation of public use. So that would be the distinction. It's not whether the road is classified one way or the other, because the road is just a necessary feature for servicing the power corridor. So yeah, it's not the purpose of expropriation is utility easement. And that would be, at this point, that is the reason that we would be contemplating expropriating property.
So so the landowners at some point in the future could appeal to the town to have it designated as a regular street. But it would be given the policies and the bylaws of the town at the time.
Yeah, we'd obviously seek legal advice as far as the process. Traditionally, when we've opened a public street, it has been on land that has been owned by the town. So I would imagine that you would have to convert from an easement to ownership by the town. And presumably that would entail a negotiation, and presumably property owners who maybe are not the ones seeking it would have to be
May object
compensated,
to it.
in that sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the groundwork, the basis for it in terms of there being an area that has been prepared for road access, is there. Maybe property changes hands and somebody sees an opportunity for development and maybe come to the town.
Okay. Anything else on the question? I would ask the deputy CAO to read the motion for us, please.
That council approves the road sign as recommended by area.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is passed. Thank you. Let's go to item number 3 is a closed session.
Confused, I guess.
Yeah.
Move to go to closed session.
Okay. I'm sorry, clerk, deputy CAO.
Before we go to closed session, there is a question on YouTube.
Okay,
There is, this was actually answered when we went through this earlier, but there was a question, is there going to be a gate too? And that would have come up during the conversation about the road.
I believe the CAO suggested that it would be a gated access to that service road. And town staff and would have access by the key or whatever it is to the locked gate. And if a contractor or a consultant were to come and require access, then it would be provided. But under normal circumstances, it'll be a locked gate access.
More or less, as there already is a gate in that location.
Easily.
It'd be in a little bit better shape than. the
I go, yeah, good idea.
Easily defeated by someone walking around.
With the dog walkers.
Okay, so we're going to go
Yeah, we.
in camera. We have a motion. Do we have a seconder? Or do we have a deputy mayor seconds? Moved and seconded that we go in camera to discuss items under the MGA 22-2E contract negotiation and 22-2F litigation or potential litigation. On the question, all in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you. We'll now go in camera. Thank you to the